what we want. Hey, hey, hey. It's about that time.
We know what we want to do. It's another opportunity for us to get better.
Alabama has won the match.
How you compete. That means how hard you play, how tough you play, how you can sustain in tough circumstances.
Welcome to Tide TV This Week, brought to you by Renaissance Bank. I'm Christopher England alongside Maggie Hetzel.
Another win for the Tide. I wasn't mad at the bacon and the eggs and the coffee at 11 a.m. and watching Henry Ruggs go for 74 yards.
It was a great way to start the morning. Out on the field, it was the 44th meeting between Alabama and Southern Miss, with the Crimson Tide holding a 36-5 all-time series advantage over the Golden Eagles.
And as I mentioned, it was the Tua Tagovailoa, Henry Ruggs, the third show early on the Crimson Tide's first drive of the game. Tua connected with Ruggs for a 45-yard touchdown. And then on the Tide's next drive, it was Tua and Ruggs again. This time the duo connected for 74 yards and a touchdown. Those two scores put the Tide up 14-0.
Then Trayvon Diggs came up with his second interception of the season. Diggs played this ball more like a receiver than a defensive back with a nice over-the-shoulder catch. That interception led to another Alabama touchdown. This time it was Tua connecting with Najee Harris. Najee didn't have to throw anyone to the ground or hurdle any defenders on this one. He was wide open in the end zone for this one, 21-0 Bama. Tua threw his fourth touchdown of the game on the Tide's next possession, a 17-yard strike to Jerry Jeudy to put Alabama up 28-0.
And with just a little over a minute to go before the half, Golden Eagles finally got on the scoreboard. Southern Miss quarterback Jack Abraham threw a strike to DeMichael Harris as he crossed the goal line for the 4-yard touchdown. And that would be all the scoring in the first half. The Tide held a 28-7 lead at the break.
The Crimson Tide wasted no time in scoring to start the second half. Tua and Jeudy connected once again for a score. The 20-yard touchdown was Judy's second and Tua's fifth passing touchdown of the day. After the Crimson Tide forced a Golden Eagles fumble, the offense capitalized. Brian Robinson pushed it through on the right side for the 6-yard touchdown as Alabama extended their lead to 42-7.
And the scoring, it didn't stop there. With just under 2 minutes left in the game, Jerome Ford put the exclamation point on the Tide's victory with this 5-yard touchdown run as the Crimson Tide rolled over the Golden Eagles 49-7.
Well, I was really pleased with early start, guys coming out of the box, and we scored the first 4 times we had the ball in the game. I think the defense played well early in the game and, got them stopped. I'd say the only negative is, we didn't finish the first half very well. We had a couple 3-and-outs on offense, let them go 2 minutes and score. But we cut down on the penalties today. I thought we executed a lot better. The defense saw a lot of stuff that, they had to adjust to in the game, and I thought did a fairly good job of that. We got to play a lot of players. It was good that we came out in the second half after they scored right before the half and sort of reestablished the tempo of the game by coming out and scoring first drive. And so, there's a lot of good things in the game, but like always, I'm sure when we look at the film, every player should, look at it like, what could I do better? What are my vulnerabilities? What are people down the road going to see that I need to correct? And that's what we'll, kind of go to work on.
Alabama outgained Southern Miss 514 yards to just 226, averaging 8.6 yards per play compared to just 3.9 yards per play for Southern Miss. Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa led the Crimson Tide again, connecting on 17 of 21 passes for 293 yards with 5 touchdowns. Henry Ruggs and Jerry Jeudy each caught 2 of those. Ruggs led the Tide with a new career high of 148 yards on 4 receptions, while Jeudy finished with 6 for 96. Najee Harris had the other receiving touchdown. Harris also led the Tide in rushing with 114 yards, averaging 7.9 yards per rush.
The Crimson Tide defense shut down the Golden Eagles' rushing attack. Alabama allowed only 52 yards on the ground and on 32 attempts for an average of just 1.6 yards per rush. The Tide's defense came up with 2 turnovers in the game, an interception by Trayvon Diggs, his second of the season, and a fumble recovery by Jordan Battle. The Crimson Tide defense also totaled 6 tackles for loss to go along with 2 sacks. Jared Maiden led the Crimson Tide with a career-high 8 tackles.
And with a 49-7 win over Southern Miss, Alabama's consecutive win streak over unranked opponents is now at 86 games. That's the longest streak in FBS history. The Crimson Tide hasn't lost to an unranked team since 2007.
An impressive streak, I'll give them that. Now taking a look at this week's rankings, the SEC continues to dominate the top spots.
In the Associated Press poll, 3 of the top 4 are still from the SEC. The Crimson Tide are still second, receiving 6 first-place votes. Georgia's behind the Tide at 3, with the Bulldogs receiving their first place vote of the year, with LSU coming in at number 4. Auburn moves up the spot to 7, with the Florida Gators at 9 again this week, giving the SEC 5 of the top 9 spots in the AP poll. Texas A&M rounds out the teams from the conference. The Aggies drop 6 spots to number 23.
And over in the coaches poll, the Crimson Tide received 2 first-place votes, just like in the AP. Georgia received 1 of those. Oklahoma is coach's choice at number 4, with LSU rounding out the top 5. The SEC has 5 of the top 8 in the coaches' rankings. Auburn is 7th, with Florida at 8. Texas A&M is the only other SEC school in the coaches' top 25. The Aggies are at 21.
And Maggie, there is no kickoff time for next week. Coach Saban and the Tide have a much-deserved off weekend.
Yes, they do. The Tide will rest up next weekend and return to the action on October 12th as Alabama will head to College Station to take on those Aggies.
And coming up next, we'll take you inside the action with an all-access look at the Crimson Tide's win over Southern Miss.
Tide TV this week is brought to you by ATI. Built by Bama. Rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy. Ford and the F-150. Tough runs in our family. See your local Ford dealer today. AFS, a Bayless company. Your foundation and waterproofing specialists. Serving you since 2000.
You thought the Tide would be pretty pleased with the 49-7 win over the Golden Eagles, but post-game, Xavier McKinney said it was a good showing for the defense, but it wasn't the shutout that they want, so it wasn't perfection yet. That statement shows just why the Alabama team is so good. Let's take an all-access look at Alabama's win over Southern Miss. It's brought to you by ATI.
It is a gorgeous 78-degree morning. It is a cloudless sky overhead as Alabama and Southern Mississippi get set to resume a series.
The weather's awesome. We got a nice little breeze coming onto the field with 78, sunshine, not a cloud in the sky. Perfect Saturday for some football.
Feel lovely. Roll with it. Now we're going to eat. Time to munch.
First of all, they score almost every time they touch the ball early in a game.
Quick slant. There he goes. Henry runs for a Tide touchdown.
Tua getting the ball out quickly and accurately. And it's yards after the catch by the best receiving group in the land.
Third down for the Golden Eagles. Pressure through the A-gap. Anthony Jennings drove him into the turf here at Bryant-Denny. Tagovailoa fires one deep. Wide open is Ruggs. Henry Ruggs will not be caught. Touchdown, Crimson Tide.
Throws it up for grabs. Intercepted over the shoulder by Trayvon Diggs. His second interception of the year.
Waddle got it at the 5. It's first down and goal.
Big catch, just showing the physicality.
Wide open. Najee out of the backfield. Touchdown, Alabama.
And nothing doing play. Outstanding. 3 and out for USF. Second-ranked Tide. Performing up to standard so far. Judy left wide open for an easy touchdown. There he goes, Gary Judy.
Elite, fast.
Fake it to Harris. Judy wide open for the touchdown.
Reaches down to his knees, makes the grab. Touchdown, Alabama.
A lethal combination. Quarterback in a great group of receivers at Alabama.
Defense for the Tide has been rock solid here at home against USM. Hard hit in the backfield with authority. Pocket collapses. Down he goes.
Go destroy the football. You can't do it any better than that.
Fumble. Ball pops out and recovered by the Tide. Jordan Battle, the freshman, with the recovery. Harris for a first down. Robinson straight ahead. Not just yet. Touchdown Tide.
Hard running by the youngster, Brian Robinson. A nice spiraling kick away. Waddle at the 18, up the right sideline, 30. Right up the sideline, nobody around him.
Waddle, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's got a chance to score every single time.
And the younger brother of Tua looking to pass. Now floats one, a dangerous toss, but it is caught. Slade Bolden. There goes Ford towards the end zone for the touchdown.
Very strong run to finish that drive.
And that is going to do it. The Alabama Crimson Tide with an impressive win, 49-7.
Tide TV this week is brought to you by ATI, built by Bama, rebuilt by ATI Physical Therapy, the University of Alabama, where legends are made.
Welcome back. Alabama and Ole Miss meet for the 67th time in series history on Saturday in Bryant-Denny. The Crimson Tide leads the all-time series 51-11 with 2 ties. This will be Matt Luke's 3rd time facing Alabama as head coach. Luke is 0-2 against the Tide, including a 62-7 loss last year in Oxford. This year, the Rebels enter Saturday's matchup 2-2. Ole Miss dropped their season opener to Memphis 15-10 in Liberty Bowl Stadium. The Rebels bounced back in week 2, picking up a big win at home in their SEC opener. Ole Miss defeated the Arkansas Razorbacks 31-17. Ole Miss followed their first win of the season with another in week 3, defeating Southeastern Louisiana 40-29. Last week, Ole Miss hosted number 23 California. Ole Miss fell behind 28-13, but the Rebels mounted a fourth quarter comeback. Ole Miss scored with 4:29 to play in the game to bring the Rebels to within 8 at 28-20. With the clock winding down, the Rebels completed a 41-yard pass down to the 10-yard line to set up 1st and goal. On 3rd and goal from the 3, Ole Miss quarterback J.R. Plumlee completed the pass to Elijah Moore on what looked like a touchdown, but he was called just short of the goal line. The play wasn't reviewed, and with no timeouts remaining, Ole Miss had one final attempt to score on 4th down, but the quarterback sneak was stopped short, and the Cal Golden Bears escaped with a 28-20 win over the Rebels in Oxford. Freshman Matt Corral has guided the Rebels offense this season under first-year offensive coordinator Rich Rodriguez. Corral was named SEC Freshman of the Week for his performance in the win over Arkansas in Week 2. Corral has thrown for 844 yards with 4 touchdowns and 1 interception. The head coach Matt Luke said the Rebels could use a 2-quarterback attack against the Tide. That's because Corral went down with an injury late in the 4th quarter last week against California. Freshman J.R. Plumlee came in and was near perfect in his debut. Plumlee completed all 7 of his pass attempts for 82 yards. Plumlee also added 53 yards rushing on 3 attempts as he gave the Rebels a chance to tie the game before time expired. The Rebels' main receiving target has been Elijah Moore. He leads the team with 29 receptions, 22 more than the next Ole Miss receiver. Moore has totaled 380 yards in 4 games and has 3 of the Rebels' 4 receiving touchdowns on the year. On the ground, senior Scotty Phillips has dominated the Ole Miss backfield this season, rushing for 374 yards on 85 carries, and is 3rd in the SEC with 4 rushing touchdowns. The Ole Miss defense has been stingy when it comes to the rushing game this season. The Rebels ranked 2nd in the SEC, allowing just 2.8 yards per carry for an average of 94.8 yards per game. The Crimson Tide have been dominant against the Rebels as of late, with the Tide winning 62-7 last season in Oxford and 66-3 in Tuscaloosa in 2017. But Alabama has lost only 3 games in the regular season since 2014, and 2 of those have come against the Ole Miss Rebels.
This is a well-coached team, and this is a team that we've struggled with some in the past that, we're certainly going to have a great week of preparation to be able to play well in this game.
Kickoff is scheduled for 2:30 p.m. inside Bryant-Denny Stadium. The game will be televised on CBS. We'll have more Tide TV this week coming up next. The Alabama men's basketball team officially kicked off the Nate's Oat era on Tuesday.
The team held their first official practice under Coach Oates as the Tide prepares for the 2019-2020 season. Along with the new head coach and staff, the Crimson Tide will have a new look this season. This year's roster features a total of 7 newcomers, including 4 freshmen and 3 transfers. The season will tip off on November 5th as the men will host Penn here in Coleman Coliseum.
To finally get to go and let them know what a real practice is going to look like. I thought they responded pretty well because we went almost 3 hours today, so it's hard, but you see who can fight through a little bit of fatigue and who's ready to play at the college level when you go through it. So yeah, I was excited. I thought the energy was good. We got a million things to clean up, but that's typical first day practice stuff.
He looked like a kid in a candy shop. The Alabama women's basketball team also held their first practice of the season this week. Coach Curry and the Tide hit the hardwood on Wednesday for their first official practice. This year, Alabama returns 11 players from last season, which is tied for most among SEC teams. The women begin their season on October 27th with an exhibition against Auburn Montgomery right here in Tuscaloosa. But you don't have to wait until then to catch them and the men. They're in action for Tide Tip-Off.
That's right, Maggie. The two teams will take part in the 5th annual Tide Tip-Off event on October 18th at Coleman Coliseum. As in the past, the evening will be packed with entertainment, giveaways, prizes, and more.
So go ahead and mark that on your calendar. Doors open at 6 p.m. and the action on the court will begin at 7 p.m.
And Maggie, it's still a few months away for the rest of us, but Christmas came early for the former Crimson Tide players now playing in the NFL.
All 64, that's right, of the former Tide players now playing in the league received a little present from Coach Saban and the University of Alabama.
Old St. Nick's sent the players care packages filled with lots of Crimson Tide clothes and apparel, and as you can see, they were pretty excited to receive their gifts. Bradley Bozeman showed off his box on Twitter, and Mac Wilson showed his appreciation as well.
And Marlon Humphrey gave everyone a look inside his box. It's good to play for Bama. You'll win national championships while you're here, and it's good to see that Coach Saban and the staff really still care for their former players after they leave.
Maggie, there are 64, as you said, former Crimson Tide players in the NFL. That's enough for an entire team. Why would you go anywhere else? And we hope you don't go anywhere else, because we'll have more Tide TV This Week coming up next.
Tagovailoa fires one deep, wide open is Ruggs. Henry Ruggs will not be caught. Touchdown, Crimson Tide. Taking it here. Judy wide open for the touchdown. Not just yet. Touchdown Tide. There goes Ford towards the end zone for the touchdown.
Those are our BBVA top plays of the week. Now let's take a look at our players of the week, brought to you by Payless Drugs. Henry Ruggs III made a statement against the Golden Eagles by scoring the first 2 touchdowns of the game. Ruggs scored his first from 45 yards out and then scored his second from 74 yards out. Ruggs finished with a career-high 148 yards with 2 touchdowns on the day. The 2 touchdowns moved him into 3rd place on Alabama's career touchdown reception list with 21, 1 behind Jerry Jeudy and 10 behind the Tide's all-time leader, Amari Cooper. He even added a couple tackles on special teams as well.
And how can you not go with the guy that threw all those passes to Ruggs? Quarterback Tua Tagovailoa completed 17 of 21 passes for 293 yards, and Tua tied his career high for touchdown passes in a game with 5. The 293 yards pushes Tua's career total to 5,902 yards. Yep, ranking 5th all-time for the Crimson Tide. Tua is just 81 yards behind Andrew Zhao at number 4.
Now let's take a look at next week's schedule for the Crimson Tide. What's next is brought to you by Renaissance Bank.
Volleyball begins the week on Wednesday as the Tide travels to Auburn for a 7 o'clock matchup. The match will be televised on SEC Network. Cross country competes in the Notre Dame Invitational in South Bend on Friday, with the swim team taking on Georgia in Birmingham at noon.
Men's tennis will also be in Birmingham on Friday as they compete in the Sanford Fall Invite, and soccer will be here in Tuscaloosa. The Tide will host Mississippi State on Friday night at 7.
And the swim team will also be in action on Saturday as the Tide will compete against Vanderbilt in Nashville. Rowing travels to Oklahoma City to compete at the head of the Oklahoma, and the women's tennis team will also be in Oklahoma. The ladies will compete in the ITA All-American Championships in Tulsa.
And on Sunday, volleyball takes on Georgia in Athens at 1. Thanks again for joining us for another episode of Tide TV This Week.
Have a great week, everybody. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.